Hey there, and welcome back to Temporary Locals.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Megan, and this week we are taking you where the Sonoran and Mojave deserts collide to Joshua Tree, California. But before we get into that, if you are new here, Jared and I are an adventure loving couple sharing our real stories and experiences from the places that we've actually been. So, whether you're planning your next adventure or just here for the storytelling, we are so happy that you're here. We hope that you stick around, subscribe, and join us. We put out new episodes every week. This week we have a current event ish, yeah,
Kinda, yeah.
travel news. You actually sent this to me. It was a Facebook post from Kausad English from August 17th, 2026. And it's a news outlet out of Thailand, Bangkok. We've talked about this before on our Peru episode, this specific news story. So there was a tourist that was denied flight at Don Muang, the airport in Bangkok, over a Machu Picchu stamp in their passport. It says they were denied boarding because they had that souvenir stamp in their passport. And I almost did that.
Yeah, that's why it was
You
kind
warned me.
of I saw that and it made me think of our experiences because when we were where was that? Was that in Aguas Calientes before
No,
going up to Machu Picchu?
no, it was at Machu Picchu. They had like a stamp book or
Okay.
stamp there.
Yeah, and I just remember
There were other people doing it.
there were other people doing it and you were thinking about doing it and
You guys were like, "Don't do that. You're gonna invalidate your passport."
you could. I mean, I don't just because you have one of those souvenir stamps, or whatever you wanna call them, it doesn't mean that you will never be able to get into like another country or fly with it or anything. It just means that certain countries, especially countries that may be more strict, can deny you access for them,
Yeah.
which is sounds like what happened to this person. And yeah, I think it's important to just kind of say like, your passport. We all like passport stamps. A lot of countries don't even do it anymore, which is unfortunate because they're really cool. We all like them. It's like a badge of honor. You know, like these are all the places I've been. And so going to a place like Machu Picchu or some other big site like that, it's tempting to want to get one of those stamps, especially the Machu Picchu stamp, souvenir stamp is actually really cool. But you also have to remember that your passport is a legal document. It's a federal document. Um, you wouldn't put a bunch of stamps all over your birth certificate or any other like important document you have. And so you have to remember that is like a lot of people I think that travel look at their passport as like I don't know, in a very like fashionable way, but it's not. And it's what gives you access to other parts of the world and it is a legal document.
Yeah. I didn't have it at the time, I don't think, the passport stamp book, so, like, not your actual passport identification, but the national park stamp book.
Mhm.
So, I think I would have done it in that, if I could go back, because I didn't end up getting a Machu Picchu stamp, so I guess we just have to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing is you can always have like a separate booklet or
Yeah.
use an old passport if you have one and get that stamp. But don't get it in your current active passport. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it invalidates your passport or you won't be able to fly, but it could. And so I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, who wants to risk that? But Jared has an old, expired passport that's got, open to a page where there's a bunch of stamps and framed.
Yeah.
It's cool. I was really upset when we went to Peru and they were like, "No, it's just all digital,
Right.
no stamp." And I was like, at my fresh passport, no stamps on it. I was like, "Come on, man."
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of places don't do the stamps anymore. And also I've heard of people that will run out of room. You only have so many pages for stamps and I've heard of people where if you don't have a certain amount of space in your passport, you can also be denied entry for that reason too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's an option when you're getting your passport is like there's I forget what it's called. It's like extended booklet or something like
mhm,
that, but basically like you pay
extra
for extra
pages.
pages.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, funny story and it's something that we kind of almost dealt with or could have dealt with.
Yeah, almost. If you guys hadn't stopped me,
Yeah.
I might have been stuck in Peru. They might not have let me back in.
It's worse things that could happen, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, that just, came out yesterday as of recording this. Oh, also, we should probably mention it. We should probably put it on our social media too. We're adjusting our posting days. So typically we post on like Wednesdays, like we publish our episodes on Wednesdays, but we're going to switch to Fridays just because it works out
We post them
better
when we
timing
feel
wise.
like, okay? You'll get them when they're done. Okay, we're both very busy. We're running an entire empire here. And you guys will get our posts. You'll get the episode when it
No,
comes out.
we like to be somewhat consistent.
Somewhat.
So yeah, at first it was Tuesdays and then we silently just went to Wednesdays.
Yeah, well, it was Wednesdays for a while, and then but I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday for a while.
Well, because sometimes you're like, the episode's ready, and you're like, should we just post it? And I'm like, but our day is Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
So, but just the way our schedule's working out right now, and when we can record, I think it's probably going to work out better if we just publish them on Fridays. So.
When we can record and when, again, a lot of people that have never ran a podcast, it's a lot more work than what it seems. It seems like we just sit here and talk, which we do, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into, from the cover work, and we don't use like AI for any of that stuff. I mean, you do all that stuff, and the editing of the
Shout out
episode.
Canva if you want to sponsor us.
Yeah, Canva should sponsor us. And but yeah, just putting it all together and everything. And since we've gone with the RSS feed, it's gotten a lot easier with like posting and stuff, but we still maintain the social medias.
It's a 2-person crew.
Yeah. And you do a lot of that, and so shout out to you. You're really the force behind this whole thing.
You're the
So
brains.
me? I have the vision. Yeah. I tell you what I think we should do and you execute. I'm like your manager. I'm just sorry. But yeah, so I don't think a lot of people understand what all goes into a podcast unless you also do a podcast. So
And they might not care, but
they might not
if
care,
you
but
do,
yeah,
Fridays is the day now.
right.
All right, let's get into Joshua Tree. This is another episode where if you've listened to our episodes before, like what we're on, this is 53 now. So if you've listened to the other 52, you'll know that sometimes we talk about places that we've been to together, and sometimes there's some solo episodes like where I talk about a place that I have been and maybe Jared hasn't, and vice versa. More often, Jared's telling me about a place that he's been and I haven't. So this is one of those times where I'm kind of like a listener, hearing about your experience.
Yeah, and also some of our episodes are about an entire country, maybe. And those trips can extend from a few days to, we've had guests on that have lived in a place for long term, months, whatever. Uh and sometimes it's just a city or a state or a small area or a whole continent.
Hmm.
We've done, so it's not, I mean, typically our episodes are about a different country, but for our domestic episodes, I mean, the US is so big, and obviously we've spent a lot of time in the US traveling, so we do a lot of episodes on different parts of the US, and like I said, that can be from a state to a city to a national park like today's episode. And this particular episode, and what I'm going to talk about with Joshua Tree was a single day. It was a single day trip to Joshua Tree that I took. So, it's a lot different than the weeks I spent in Southeast Asia or in, you know, the time we spent in Peru and things like that. It's it's a single day, and so it's not as involved, I guess.
Yeah, maybe not a whole lot of like detail
Right.
to
But
recollect, but still a cool place to talk about, and
mhm.
some interesting history there too.
Yeah, and that's really why I wanted to do an episode on Joshua Tree, is because I mean, we've done an episode on Southern California and all the different places we went in Southern California, mostly in, mostly around LA. But Joshua Tree is special, and it's a lot different than any other area in Southern California or in the United States for that matter. And it's a place that's really special to me. Even though, again, had only gone there for a day. I really fell in love with Joshua Tree, like most people that go there, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
It has a real spiritual aspect to it, which sounds woo woo and kind of silly, but it really does. And anybody that's been there, I think, kind of understands what I'm talking about. And it's inspired artists and musicians and like just creative people throughout history. And so, yeah, I think it's a good episode to do. I think it's a good, um, it's a very specific place. Uh, I don't have we ever done another national park episode, another episode on just a national park?
I don't think so. I mean, we've definitely featured national parks
Right.
in episodes, but I don't
Yeah.
think so. We didn't do anything on Congaree.
No, we talked about doing an episode on Congaree, so that might be coming also. Um, but Joshua Tree, I think, is going to be our first episode that's on just a specific national park.
Yeah, and we're dressed for the part.
Yeah. So you may notice if you're watching this, if you have video, I'm wearing a Joshua Tree shirt. There's a North Face shirt, and you are wearing the matching shorts. And it's like it's a shorts and shirt combo. But if you wear both together, it's just a little too much.
Yeah,
You know what I
it
mean?
was
So
very it's a unique pattern. I
yeah.
love these shorts, man.
So I got you shorts and I got the long sleeve shirt.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a North Face shirt. It's really comfy and it has Joshua trees all over it.
I think we got these at a Dick's Sporting Good in, like, Augusta or
Sure.
something.
It wasn't Augusta. It was like the Atlanta area, I
Okay.
think. Yeah. But yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I don't remember, was that before or after I had gone to Joshua Tree? Probably after.
I think it was after.
Yeah. Cause I was like, oh my God, Joshua Tree, look at these shirts,
Yeah.
you know? And it's funny because sometimes you'll be like watching a movie or something and you'll see one and it's like, I know where that is,
Mhm.
you know? Which is also kind of a misconception is that people think that Joshua Tree National Park in that area, it's kind of like Saguaro where that's the only place where Joshua trees grow, but that's actually not true. Joshua trees are found in other parts of Southern California and northern Mexico, kind of in Arizona. It really depends on like where you're at and who you talk to. Uh, it's kind of that way with like peyote. Like peyote only grows in certain areas of the Southwest United States and northern Mexico. But if you talk to some people, they're like, "Man, I swear I've seen it in Arizona," and it's like it doesn't grow in Arizona. No, man, it used to grow in Arizona, and like no one really knows.
Yeah.
People will say they do, but there's really no telling like how spread out it is. But with Joshua Tree, they do grow in other areas, but it's still a pretty small centralized area. And Joshua Tree National Park is where the majority of them are. Like again, like Saguaro National Park.
Mhm.
There's saguaros obviously all throughout Arizona, southern Arizona especially, but Saguaro National Park is special in that way that it's like that's where the largest concentration of them are. That's where the saguaro is known for, and so that's also kind of the same thing with Joshua Tree.
Yeah. And they're not actually trees.
No, they're not. Yeah, another kind of interesting fact is like Joshua trees are called that, but they're not actually trees. They're plants. They're a succulent. They're a type of yucca. They're a type of yucca plant, and which is where the valley that area is in is called the Yucca Valley,
Mm.
which we'll get into. And I love the Yucca Valley. It's really cool, man. It's a cool area, and just the drive out to Joshua Tree is like one of those drives. It's like Arches, where it's like the drive is almost as good as when you get there. It's
Yeah.
almost worth it just for the drive. Joshua Tree National Park is also where I first was aware of and got the America the Beautiful pass.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
I was able to get in for free, and now I have was it a lifetime
Yeah.
America the Beautiful pass, which I've used to get us into different state parks and national monuments and things like that. So,
And we're gonna use it again to get into Castillo de San Marcos soon.
and I used it to get us into Castillo di San Marco last time.
Yeah.
I think I got all of us in. It was
Mhm.
like four of us,
Yeah, you can get up to 4 people with the pass.
which is pretty crazy.
That's
But
pretty cool.
um, yeah, it saves you a bit of money, and I wasn't even aware of it, but the person at the front gate, where you pay to go in, told me about it. And so since, I being a veteran, I was able to get that pass and get us in for free.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for your service and your free, national park passes.
that's right. Yeah, we could go to all national parks for free. And we used it to get into Arches when we were just out in Moab too a couple
Yeah, we
months
sure
ago.
did.
Yeah.
And Rocky Mountain National Park
Yeah.
and the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, we use it a lot.
We've been putting it to good use.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
The location of Joshua Tree, it's considered the high desert, kind of like Moab and that, region of the Southwest, and it sits at roughly 2,700 feet above sea level, which keeps the temperature slightly lower than like your typical what you would think of as a desert in the Southwest. But it can still get very hot during the day, and it was hot when we were there. I was there in the summer
Yeah, I
because
was trying to remember when you went. That was your
yeah.
second trip to California?
Yeah, that was my second trip. I went out to California, and we talked about this in a past episode, the California episode, Southern California. I spent like 2 months out in LA.
Oh, like 2 separate, like 1 month, came back, and then another month.
Yeah, I was out there for a month. I came back for a few weeks and then went back for another month. And so, yeah, it was on the second trip. And a group of us went out and we did a bunch of things while I was out there. Spent a lot of time in Santa Monica, which I really love. But one trip we took was to Joshua Tree, and it was myself, Rachel, and Patrick, and the three of us, because the three of us were always down to do whatever, you know.
Mhm.
And so we got up early one morning and headed out and headed for the Yucca Valley. So a little information about Joshua Tree. It was designated a national park in 1994, so it's a fairly recent national park. And I think Congaree is another one, since we mentioned Congaree earlier. You and I watched that documentary on Congaree while we were out there last time. And I believe Congaree was designated a national park pretty recently too, within the past couple decades.
Yeah, they just celebrated their 50 years, though.
Okay,
So,
so it's even,
before
yeah.
yeah,
But even that, even 50 years is still a pretty new national park.
yeah.
Most of our national parks have been around since, Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, so it was designated a national park in 1994, and I think before that time, before it was like a part of the National Park Service and you had park rangers,
Okay.
before you had rules and regulations and all these types of things, I think it was like the Wild West out there, and I think a lot of people would go out into Joshua Tree and partake in a lot of different things, which we'll talk about. It became a real hub for like spirituality and like holistic sort of practices. A lot of people would go out into Joshua Tree and partake in like psychedelic drugs. A lot of people would go out there and do mushrooms or acid. They'd take peyote. It's just a very spiritual place, and so it attracted a lot of people that would go out there and do these things. And it was also a hotbed for UFO activity, UFO sightings, which could coincide with being on psychedelic drugs, obviously, but it's just a very interesting place. And there's no other place like it, which is another reason I really like it. And I compare it in that way again to Saguaro. Like when you're in Saguaro National Park.
Mhm.
When you're in Joshua Tree. And I mean, I've seen other Joshua trees in other areas, but
It's, like, few and far in between type
yeah,
thing. They're very concentrated there.
yeah. And it's just a forest of them in this high desert landscape, and it's one of the most beautiful places. And for that reason, it again was a very popular place for people to go, especially like in the 60s and 70s to, get weird,
Yeah.
right?
You sound like a shark, and for that reason, I'm in.
um the earliest known people in the area are the Pinto culture, and they lived in the area between 8,000 and 4,000 BC, which is going back a very long way. So people haven't inhabited that area for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, we're talking predating the pyramids. Like and we know this. We know that people were in the Americas that long ago. So that's who they kind of attribute the earliest known settlement and civilization, or people of that area. I don't know of very many petroglyphs out in that area, but they've obviously found like artifacts and things like that. They've done archaeological work out there and stuff. So, you know,
Mhm.
simple pottery and tools. And again, like I said, Joshua trees are known as like kind of a spiritual symbol. I believe the band U2 has an album called Joshua Tree, and the cover is, or the inside cover is of a Joshua tree. And I remember seeing that when I was a young kid and not really knowing what it was or what a Joshua tree was.
Yeah, growing up on the East Coast.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just it's one of those things, man. It attracts a lot of like very creative people, musicians and artists and things like that. It's a very psychedelic town too. Like when you're going through the Yucca Valley, um, there's a lot of really cool like little shops and stuff.
I mean, they just look psychedelic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they almost look like Dr. Seuss or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good description.
Mhm.
They look like they should be in a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah, they look Seussian. But I mean, you see the photos of like the sunsets and stuff, and so the sun. It's also just known for like the sunsets. Um, it's just such a beautiful landscape, you know.
Yeah. They look like, almost like a version of a palm,
Yeah, well, so the yucca plant does have like a palm
like fronds.
frond. Yeah, and there is actually like a yucca palm. And I think they are like a species of that. So yeah, just beautiful. They're beautiful. They're odd looking, but they're really cool. And there's very little light pollution out there at night. So I mean, the stars. A lot of people go out there for like stargazing and things, astrophotography, and it's just a cool place to go out and like camp and just be under the stars with the Joshua trees in the desert. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, don't get me started on a dark sky, man.
Yeah, we love dark skies. Those dark sky parks. It might be a dark sky park. I'm not sure. We'd have to look that up, but um, because is Arches considered?
Oh,
Arches is
yeah.
a dark sky park.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yep, it is an official international dark sky park.
yeah. So yeah, it's known for that. But man, the sunsets there are just incredible. So yeah, and the Joshua tree itself got its name from Mormon settlers that were traveling through the Mojave Desert back in the like mid 1800s. Because when they first arrived in that area and they witnessed the Joshua trees when they first laid eyes on them, they thought the outstretched branches resembled the biblical Joshua, um,
Hmm,
raising his hands in prayer. So that's actually where that's where the Joshua tree derives its name from, is from Joshua in the Bible.
that is cool. That's an interesting little piece of history.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously have like their scientific name, but
Figured it could have been like, because it's all like psychedelic out there that somebody named Joshua was like, yo, this is my tree dog.
yeah. So kind of going along, there's a lot of like mythology and stuff and a lot of different stories that come out of that area. But I think one of my favorite ones, it's a well-known one if you know of Joshua Tree or that area. I don't know that a lot of people generally know this story, but it's of Gram Parsons. And Gram Parsons was a singer-songwriter. He was in the band The Byrds, which is the most well-known band that he was in the 60s and 70s. And Gram Parsons, like a lot of people that came before him and after him, fell in love with Joshua Tree. He went there the first time and he just absolutely loved it and fell in love with it. And he spent a lot of time there and he kept going back to Joshua Tree. He did a lot of psychedelics in Joshua Tree, like a lot of people at that time. Again, this was before it was a national park. It was a designated like national park land, so there was a lot less regulation, a lot less rules. You could kind of just go out there and do whatever you wanted.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just like wilderness,
Yeah,
not protected.
yeah. It was just wild land. And so Graham Parsons used to go out and take heavy psychedelics, mushrooms and other things, and he would have these experiences, and he himself would also have experiences with UFOs. He talked about seeing UFOs out there. One particular trip he took out there with his manager Phil Kaufman, he got really drunk and went off into the desert. His manager and a couple of the other people he was with, he had his assistant with him also. They went back to the Joshua Tree Inn, which is a little inn in the Yucca Valley there, right beside Joshua Tree National Park. And they were just kind of partying back there. Well, Graham Parsons ended up during the night. I mean, I could go really in depth into the story, but essentially what happened was Graham Parsons ended up overdosing that night on morphine and died. There was dispute between his friends that he was with and his family after he died. His family wanted his body sent to New Orleans. They were going to have a memorial for him in New Orleans. So Graham Parsons and Phil Kaufman were at a funeral, and Graham turned to Phil and said to him, in that moment, he said, when I die, like, fuck this funeral, this like standard funeral. When I die, I want to be taken out into the desert and I want my body lit on fire. He said he essentially wanted his ashes spread in the desert, in Joshua Tree specifically, this place that he had fallen in love with and was really special to him. So after he overdosed on morphine and died in town, his body was taken to LAX to be flown home. Well, one night, Phil Kaufman and Michael Mitchell, his assistant, they got really drunk and they ended up acquiring a hearse.
Yeah, they already had it because they used it for camping.
Right. Yeah, they were using it for camping. And I've heard different versions of the story because I heard that his body was at a funeral home and they broke into the funeral home and took it with a hearse. But the actual story is that they already had the hearse. They just happened to have a hearse.
Mhm.
And his body wasn't at a funeral home, it was at LAX, waiting to be flown home. And so they drove to LAX and they broke in and they took the body in the casket. And they drove back to Joshua Tree and they drove out into the desert and they ended up at an area called Cap Rock, which is a famous area in Joshua Tree. And it's famous with rock climbers and things. And people thought that this is specifically where Gram Parsons wanted to be like cremated. But that's just where like they drifted off the road in this hearse because they were so drunk. They just like kind of came to a stop and they just decided this is where they were going to do it. So they unloaded the casket, opened the casket up, doused his dead body in gasoline and lit a match. And there was a giant fireball in the desert, which, as you can imagine, attracted some attention. So they freaked out and were like, we need to get out of here. So they left. I just think that's such a wild story. And it really shows that like true friendship because that was his actual wishes and what he wanted. And so Phil Kaufman and his assistant were arrested and charged.
Yeah, weren't they only they weren't even charged with like
Stealing a body. They were
yeah,
charged with
like stealing a casket.
stealing the casket. Yeah. Which is a weird, yeah.
And they didn't serve much time, if any
I
at
don't think they
all.
served any time. I think that they had a fine.
Oh yeah, they did, and they had a concert to raise funds to pay the fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that's a really cool story. And this guy loved Joshua Tree so much that like that's where he wanted his ashes to be. And his friends, made it happen.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
all worked out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were listening to a story, and it was like the medical examiner took him in, did his autopsy, and then got him back again after he'd been,
Right. Burnt. Yeah.
burnt. So he's like, "This guy again?"
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that is a really, quite the nugget of a story.
So yeah, driving into Joshua Tree, you go through the Yucca Valley and there's all these really cool little downtown, a lot of local shops, cool places to go eat. One particular shop that looks really cool from the outside at least is called The End, and it's very psychedelic. It's got really cool like murals and artwork on it and a big like all-seeing eye on it. We were kind of walking around and I saw that store and I was like, I gotta go in there. Now, in there it was just like overpriced, like, you know,
Trinkets and crystals and
yeah, and clothes, like vintage clothes and stuff. So the store itself, no offense, people that own this place, but the outside looked really cool and it was really inviting. And you see a lot of that there. Because again, this is a very spiritual place. It attracts a lot of like esoteric people, kind of in the same way like Sedona does, but feels a lot more like local.
yeah.
I mean, you're out in the desert and Sedona's a lot more built up, it's like a legitimate town. This is you're out there and there's not much out there, but this town is really cool.
Did you eat at all there?
No,
Not for the you just kinda
I don't
went
think
there for
so.
the day?
Yeah. One thing we wanted to find, and we didn't have a map or anything. We didn't get like a map of the park. But one thing we knew we wanted to go see was Skull Rock, which is another famous rock formation that's in Joshua Tree. And it's obviously called Skull Rock, as you can imagine, because it's shaped like a skull. It looks kind of like a skull. We actually had a kind of a hard time to find it. I know that it's probably easy to find, but we were just kind of wandering around the desert. We weren't really on trails per se. And they do have trails there, but you can kind of just wander through the desert. And so that's what we were doing. And we were looking for Skull Rock. And eventually we found it and we were able to like climb up on it and everything. And I have like a cool photo of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I do remember that. I remember you sending me a picture.
Yeah. To me, it very loosely looks like a skull, but they call it Skull Rock.
Yeah, it kinda has, like, 2 eye sockets and, like, sort of a nose.
Well, what it looks like to me is like a fucking.
Looks like Davy Jones.
I was going to say that. I was going to say Davy Jones or like a Kraken,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Um, but yeah, so we found Skull Rock eventually and hung out there for a while. We were just doing some like rock climbing because there's just like these different rock formations out there, so you can kind of climb all over them. And at one point, we were up on a rock formation, and I started hearing these like little like I don't even know what kind of sound they make, but or I don't know how to describe the sound they make, but like these like little squeaks
Mhm.
all around me. And I noticed as I looked around, there was all these little chuckwallas, which are these tiny little desert lizards. And they were just like surrounding us, and there were so many of them, and you could see them scattering like amongst all the rocks.
They look like the lizards, well, kind of, from, Holes,
Yeah,
movie Holes.
yeah, that's kind of what they are. Um,
I think they just use bearded dragons. They kinda look like a pear-shaped bearded dragon.
yeah, they're cute, but they were all around us. You see them a lot out there. Like you'll just be walking through the desert and you'll see them scatter. They can kind of get fat. You see how they're kind of fat?
Yeah,
They flatten their bodies out. But I mean, they kind of because they're kind of like a brown, or they can kind of be almost like an orangish color,
yeah.
and so they kind of blend in with the rocks and the arid landscape. But they're actually pretty easy to pick out, even though they do blend in. Yeah, you'll just be like walking through and you'll just see them everywhere. But you have these different rock formations that are like kind of famous, like Skull Rock, like Cap Rock. And by the way, going back to Gram Parsons and Cap Rock, people will leave like memorial stuff at Cap Rock in memorial of him. Fans, they'll leave guitar picks or like signs or photos or whatever. But since it became designated a national park, the park rangers will go through periodically and they'll remove that stuff. And they had like a really legit like memorial for him. I think it was like a guitar with like
Yeah, like a slab with, like, a statue or something.
yeah, and the National Park Service removed that too, but they put it at the inn where he actually died in town. So if you want to see that memorial slab for him, you have to go to the inn.
Is it the Joshua Tree Inn?
Yeah, yeah, in town.
Yeah, and I think they have rooms that he stayed in are, like, themed,
Yeah,
have
yeah. I think they
pictures and
stayed
stuff.
in. This is just a random part of the story, but they stayed in rooms 1 and 8. They had 2 rooms. I forget which room he's like specifically died in, but yeah, there's another section, and you'll see signs for it on the road that point you in the direction of it. But it's called the Hall of Horrors, which makes it sound really intimidating. It's an easy trail, but it is very like if you're claustrophobic, you may not like it. It's popular with rock climbers and stuff, but there's like a lot of slot canyons that you have to walk through.
Hmm,
And so if you're wearing a backpack, you may have to take like your backpack off, and at certain points you have to like crawl under. So the Hall of Horrors is really cool. And there's just other trails, but like I said, you don't really have to do trails. You can just kind of walk around. But it's beautiful to drive through, and when you first drive into the park and you're getting towards the park and you kind of get out, like you get into the Yucca Valley and you kind of get out of it, and then you're driving towards Joshua Tree and you just see the Joshua trees start to appear and they become more and more commonplace. The concentration of them is just like increasing as you drive further in until finally you're just surrounded by like it's desert and you can see far, but it's like a forest of Joshua trees. I had my camera on me and I like obviously taking travel photos, so it was one of those things where it's like you're trying to find the best Joshua tree to photograph. And I
yeah.
took so many photographs of the different Joshua trees cuz they all have like a similar shape, but they're all shaped differently. It's like saguaros.
Yeah, there's a uniqueness to each one.
Yeah, there's a uniqueness to each one, but like saguaros, there's like a typical saguaro shape
Yeah.
that you think of, which is like the center and then the thing like this.
Yes.
And Joshua Tree, it's kind of the same thing where it's like there's a branch here, a branch here, a branch here, and a branch here, and then the center. Um, but there's so many like variations to it. And so I took so many photos of different Joshua trees, but I was always trying to find like one that's like, okay, that's like when you think of a Joshua tree, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one that's like on the album covers. That's the one that's like people will like make art of. Um, and so it's like you're always kind of searching for that perfect one. And I know I keep making this comparison, but it's like saguaro in that way, where it's like they're all cool, but some are cooler than others, and some look like the perfect shape.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of photos, which we'll obviously post with this episode. But yeah, it was just an awesome time, man. But I do remember it was fucking hot when we were there. They say because it's the high desert that it's like not as hot, but I mean we were there in the summer and it was. I mean there were times out in Utah that like it was hot,
Yeah.
and that's the high desert. It's not southern Arizona, but it's still the desert.
Yeah.
And so it's very dry. There's not a lot of humidity, and the sun is just ablazing.
You were there probably in, like, August?
Yeah, I think
July
so.
or August.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the desert when we were in Arizona going to the Grand Canyon, it was like 20 degrees cooler, but that was also in like springtime, right? So it was
Right.
still there was still kind of like snow on a lot of parts of the mountains.
Well, and that's again very high elevation,
Yeah.
just like this is, and just like a lot of like Utah. That's why it's called the high desert. It's high elevation desert. But once you get into like the low desert or the real desert of Arizona, like it's hot. But it's a dry heat, as everybody says.
Yeah, it's still hot.
People out west don't believe me when I'm like South Carolina is hotter than where you live. And I used to live in Arizona. Like I used to live there, so I know what Arizona's like. But I have people like that either live there or live out there that'll be like, no, no, and I'm like, dude, trust me, South Carolina gets fucking so hot. And I know I sound like a total middle aged dad saying this, but like the humidity is what makes the difference.
Yeah.
Because I can do 100 degrees and it feels like 100 degrees, but when it's 100 degrees here, it feels like 120 because it's 100% humidity.
Yeah, and like you're walking through thick air.
Yeah, and it's just sweat.
Yeah.
Like you can hike out here, and I mean you'll sweat, but you're not. It's not terrible. Like we didn't sweat a lot when we were in Utah. I mean we
Yeah, it
hiked and we
evaporates so quickly, but that's one of the reasons why it can be dangerous too,
right,
because you don't realize how much you're sweating, how much water
exactly.
you're losing.
Yeah, you don't think you're losing water, but you are.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the desert is dangerous in that way. So, but yeah, that's mostly everything I have on Joshua Tree.
Sounds like a really cool place,
Yeah,
and I know you just spent a day there. It'd be nice to go back and, well, for me to go there and, spend some more time in that area.
yeah.
I'm like real itching for a trip. We've got some stuff planned. And we've been to the desert a lot this year, but man, just talking about the desert makes me feel like I want to get out there. I want to go to the desert.
I could go out west all the time.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about how much I love the tropics, and I do, but man, I love it out west. I love the desert. It's a special place, which is why people are so drawn to it. And Joshua Tree is one of those places where, for me, again, I only spent a day there, but it like had such an impact on me, and I love it so much. And there's plenty of other places I've been where I only went for a day, and maybe if I spent more time in those places, I would fall in love with them more. But Joshua Tree, it's like a day is all it took, and I was instantly like, this is one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
At least out on that side of the country, it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite national parks for sure.
Yeah. And I think the national park it's like 85% wilderness or something like that. Like
Yeah,
it's just most of it is just land.
yeah. There's not much there. It's not like a bunch of attractions or it's. And when we were there, at least, and maybe it's because it was the summer, but it was not busy. It's. I could be wrong about this because I didn't do the research, but it feels like it's a very big national park, like a lot of land area.
Mhm.
Because you can just drive through for a while, but it was just there. It wasn't like tour buses of people. It wasn't like Rocky Mountain National Park where there's like tons of fucking people everywhere. In fact, now that I think about it, I don't remember seeing anybody else there. It was just us that I can recall. There might have been another you know group of people, but
Yeah.
it wasn't big crowds like you get at a lot of national parks. So I think in that way, it's also very underrated. If we ever do an episode on national parks, which I think at some point we will, uh, like just overall different national parks and everything, we'll have to revisit Joshua Tree
Yeah.
and talk about it because I think it's a very, I don't want to say it's underrated because again, a lot of people obviously have been going there for decades and it's a very special place to a lot of people, but I think the general public don't think of Joshua Tree that often. I think when you think of national parks, you think of, you know,
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain
The
National
Grand
Park.
Canyons
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Teton and all
yeah,
those, all the big ones,
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, all the big ones that people talk about.
Yeah.
Um, Places like Joshua Tree and like Saguaro don't get a lot of attention or credit. And I think those places are really special.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I'm a sucker for a desert.
I'm a sucker for a Joshua Tree.
Thanks for sharing your time
Yeah.
in Joshua Tree. That was a fun one.
Yeah. That was good.
Well, you guys,
I'm Jared.
that's it for this week.
Was
Thank
I
you.
supposed to say it?
No,
Oh, well, you looked at me. That was
I
my
know.
cue.
No. Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening and sticking around for this episode. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode by interacting with whatever platform you're on. We are on video on Spotify and YouTube and on any other place that you get your podcasts for audio. You can find us on Instagram at TemporaryLocalsPod. Jared's on Instagram at Rover_Stover and Rover Stover on YouTube. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Mego Goes Global. And with that,
Is it my turn now?
yes.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Megan. Thanks for exploring with us.
And remember to be a local anywhere you go.
Bye.
Bye.